All right, starting at the beginning, let me call to order this meeting of the Town Council Study Committee. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Joe Grouse, Chair of the Town Council Study Committee. Welcome to our first public forum. Thank you for taking time out of your Saturday to attend this meeting. Our primary goal this morning is to listen and learn from you, residents and voters here on Nantucket. Let me remind everybody that this is a hybrid meeting with attendees in person and on Zoom. It is being recorded, so keep in mind that anything you say will be part of the recording. Let me introduce the other members of the Town Council Study Committee that are with us this morning. I'm going to go the other direction. Rachel Mandel to my left, Caroline Baltzer to my right, Bo Barber, and at the end of the table, Jeff Carlson, who's also the vice chair. And I wasn't going to forget you, Curtis. Way in the back, Curtis Barnes, who's also a member of our committee. Our agenda today is pretty simple. We're going to go through a brief presentation that will summarize how the Town Council Study Committee came into being, our purpose, and what we've been working on, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. The rest of the meeting will be left for comments and questions from the audience, both those of you here in the room as well as anybody who is out there on Zoom. We'll try to follow the usual procedure for public meetings here in Nantucket. I will recognize a speaker. If you want to speak or ask a question, you can walk up to the microphones here on the 2 aisles. For Zoom participants, please use your raise hand function, and we'll try to make sure we balance questions back and forth between folks on Zoom and here. We're going to try to do our best to answer any questions that that you all have, but it may be that there's going to be some topics that our committee really hasn't dealt with yet, and if that happens, we'll say so, that we don't have an opinion or haven't made a decision on a particular issue. But all of these questions that are delivered today, we're going to gather them, summarize them, answer them where we can, and then post them on our pages on the town's website. For those of you who don't want to ask a question in public, maybe feel a little reluctant to do that, we do have index cards and pens back in the back at the table with Curtis, and so you should feel free, if you would prefer, to write a question or a statement and leave it in the basket. We will treat those as we would any of the public discussions. So I think that's probably all the housekeeping issues. Let me get started. I'm sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
If I can add really quickly to that as well. If you have a question that comes up later, whether it's tomorrow or the next day, we also have an active email address, tcsc@nantucket-ma.gov. It'll be available through our town webpage. There'll be a link to click that you can send an email. So at any point, if you have a thought or comment or a question, feel free to send it to that address as well, and we'll take it up at our next meeting. Or if we keep kind of running a FAQ page off of our page, we'll certainly add that question with an answer to that question.
Thanks, Jeff. All right, shall we bring up our little PowerPoint discussion? There we go. Great title, isn't it? All righty. We've been using this little presentation over the last couple of weeks, couple of months with various groups here on Nantucket, and I think it's a good primer on kind of how we came about and what we've been working on. We're going to talk about, if you go to page 2, Jeff, basically how the Town Council Study Committee came into being, a little bit about the forms of municipal government here in Massachusetts, talk a little bit about open town meeting, what's good about it, maybe what we think may be an issue, and then finally talk a little bit about the Town Council form of government, what its characteristics are, and why we think it offers some benefits to us. The Town Council Study Committee was created by Citizens Article number 81 at the 2023 annual town meeting. That article was submitted by Curtis Barnes, our fellow committee member in the back corner, and was passed by a rather large voice vote at that town meeting. Our purpose, and the purpose of the committee, is to study the town council form of government and submit an article to a future town meeting enabling voters to have a say on whether or not the town should consider or should convert to a town council form. The select board appointed 9 of us as voting members in October 2023, along with a number of alternates. And at that time asked that we also spend some time reviewing the other forms of government available in Massachusetts, which are representative town meeting and city council mayor forms, as well as the town council town manager that we're focused on today. After doing the review of some of these other forms, we did meet, and at our meeting in June, we voted unanimously to go forward with recommending to the town a town council town manager form. And right now we're working on, as you'll hear in a few moments, working on a revised charter for the town of Nantucket and an article to go forward in a future town meeting. We're also, at this stage of our operations or our activity, engaged in public outreach like this, trying to get input from voters and residents on Nantucket. Jeff, we'll go to the next one. This is just a chart we like to show. It kind of gives people a perspective on the scale and the types of town governments that exist in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Open town meeting is a kind of New England, I guess, tradition. Most states and communities that use open town meeting tend to be in New England. 70-odd% of towns across the country tend to use something like town council forms. And this gives you a perspective here in Massachusetts that obviously the majority of towns, smaller towns for the most part, use open town meeting. We split the open town meeting group into 2 because any town that has a population under, I believe it's 6,000 residents, is required to use open town meeting, whereas once you get above 6,000, you have the option of some of the other forms. There are 13 towns that are town council, town manager, and 46 cities, for the most part, that use city council, mayor forms of government. Okay. Town meeting obviously has been part of Nantucket's history for a long time, and across New England as well. It is a form of direct democracy. The citizens are in a town meeting, and you're probably aware of this, the citizens in a town meeting are the legislature, and when they assemble at town meeting or a special town meeting, they are the body that is approving appropriations and making laws and bylaws. It is worth noting that Nantucket, compared to other Massachusetts communities, has a historically better than average turnout, but I'm not sure that's anything really to be that proud about. In general, we've had sort of 5 to 15% of registered voters turn out for town meetings over the last 20 plus years. But what are some of the issues that face open town meeting? And I think there are sort of 2 groups. One is that open town meeting is slow and cumbersome. There are only 1, or if there are special town meetings, maybe 2 town meetings a year. So petitioners or bylaws or appropriations have to wait a number of months before they are put forward in a town meeting. A lot of the articles are complicated, and a lot of citizens are not completely educated as to them when they arrive for town meeting. And I think that the other aspect of it, of course, is that the largest number of voters or members for a town meeting show up at the beginning, and then, as many of you know, as town meeting goes on, it dwindles from 9 or 10% of the voters to maybe 2 or 3 that are there at the very end. Part of this means that open town meeting doesn't represent the voters of Nantucket terribly well. There are 10,000 registered voters of Nantucket, and yet only, let's call it 9 to 12% show up with any regularity. So I think one of the other aspects of this is open town meeting doesn't represent the voters of Nantucket and the citizens of Nantucket very well. So we think that there is some great benefit to convert to a town council form of government where, as a representative form of democracy, a broader swath of the voters of Nantucket would be represented in that form. Go to the next page. Just a quick summary of to compare the two forms, open town meeting and town council. You go down the left-hand column, as I've been describing, citizens form the legislature in an open town meeting. They have that authority. There generally are 1 or 2 or 3 town meetings per year. This gets back to the whole issue of sort of a slow and somewhat cumbersome process. The select board and town manager collectively are the executive branch of open town meeting government, and the town manager executes most appointments, regulations, hires and fires key employees, usually with the veto or approval of the select board. The select board appoints most commissions and committee members who are not elected, and then the town charter, which we operate under, defines various rules and practices in terms of committees and boards like the planning board and various enterprise funds. Under the town council, town manager form of government, the town councilors elected by all of the citizens are the legislative body. So these X number of people, and in our discussions, we're thinking about 9 councilors for a Nantucket Town Council. They are the legislative body. They tend to meet regularly throughout the year. Most of the other 13 town councils in Massachusetts tend to operate on a bi-weekly meeting basis. The town council hires the town manager, who's then, the town manager becomes a slightly more powerful town manager, I guess, compared to what we have today, in the sense that the town manager has a broader range of authority to hire and populate the management structure of the town. Voters and non-voters have the right to speak before town council meetings. In fact, all town council meetings that we've investigated always leave time for open comment from citizens and voters and non-voters. One of the things that we think gives us, is sort of a benefit to the way we're looking at how this may come out, is that we've been attempting to keep as many of the structures of Nantucket's administration, various boards, various enterprise funds the same, and this is not a very good analogy, but sort of unplug open town meeting and plug in town council in terms of how everything operates. And we think we can accomplish that in terms of the development of the charter that we're working on. The advantages of the town council, town manager form. It's a continuous process. As I said, the meetings tend to go every other week in most communities. So issues that come up before Nantucket could be dealt with on a very continuous and immediate basis. Town councilors are a full-time job, or nearly a full-time job. And so you end up with politicians who are knowledgeable, are aware of the issues, and are fully engaged in various issues facing the town, as opposed to open town meeting, where very often many people who arrive at town meeting aren't as fully educated on some of the issues facing them. As elected representatives, town councilors would represent all of their constituents, as opposed to the 8 or 9 or 10% that show up at town meeting. One thing that we think would be quite different is we expect that the compensation level for town councilors would be significantly more than the, I think it's $3,500 that the select board gets compensated at right now. I mentioned that we believe that we can adapt to all the various idiosyncrasies of Nantucket's current structure administratively and legally. We believe that the town councilors could operate as the county commissioners, and many of the other appointments and boards would continue as before. We already have a very strong town manager. Libby Gibson's position is considered a strong town manager even in the open town meeting world. And so I think that in terms of that position's authority and what it does, it would be a fairly easy remapping, if you will. Finally, go to the next page, Jeff. Right now, our town council, our committee is working on revising a draft town charter for a town council form of government. We continue to work on that and expect to have it completed more or less towards the end of this year. We are actively seeking public input. That's one of the reasons for this gathering this morning. And once we have our charter completed and feel that we've assessed the input from the citizenry, we're going to compose a report to the select board, as we're required to do, and then develop an article that will go forward on a future town meeting. At this stage, we don't believe that we're going to make the May town meeting for 2025. Once this article proposing a change to town council, hopefully, in my case, hopefully passes town meeting, it has to be sent to, it's something called special municipal legislation. It would get sent to the State House, much like home rule petitions. Once the State House rules on it and sends it back to Nantucket, it would go on the ballot, and on whatever cycle that ballot would be. If it passes at that stage, the then select board and would probably constitute a conversion committee that would think about the practical steps of how you go from open town meeting to town council. Obviously, if it doesn't pass, select the open town meeting or at the ballot, that's the end of that issue, and we would stay at the open town meeting form. I think I have hit all the high points of our presentation. Hopefully that wasn't too long. From that point, we would like to hear from you. And the microphones are open at both ends of the room. I would ask that folks here who have a question or a comment, please step up to one of the microphones, identify yourself, and ask away. And our committee here will do our best. Oh, I'm sorry, Curtis?
I'd like to add just a comment or two. Curtis Barnes. I think there are two very important reasons to look at the town council form of government. Right now, the summer residents, or those we call non-voting taxpayers, cannot go to a town meeting. Under a town council form of government, they are welcome to go and to speak and express their concerns. Some people are here in July, some are in August. There will be meetings that they can go to in those months instead of something in May when they're not here, or September. The second important thing is we have 3,000 to 4,000 people who are residents but non-voters, green card people, your carpenter, your electrician, your cleaner. They can't go to town meeting because they're not registered voters, and they have very important concerns. They too can go to the town council meeting and speak. So I think that the town council opens up the opportunity to participate in government to two very, very important constituencies who are now not able to do that. And that's one reason I brought the article forward. Thank you.
All right. Ask away.
Okay, more of an informative aspect. My name is Judge John Perrone. I'm a retired Superior Court judge out of New York. We call State Supreme Court. I've been a resident of Nantucket, summer resident for over 20 years. I now am a permanent resident. But more important, I was a town councilman in the town of Mamaroneck for 4 years. And it was an amazing experience, an experience that I think is justified in your study, and I'm totally in favor of it. Now, with the differences, we had 4 town councilmen, not 9. I shudder thinking back, of a 9-member town council. 4 that were elected in alternate, 2 were elected alternate times. And make sure those elections are not in November, otherwise become political. And you'll end up political town council people, and you want to stay away from the political aspects of the different parties. Now, we had a town manager form of government, but we started with a supervisor. The supervisor was like a mayor, and he handled all, or she handled all the executive positions. But we moved to a town manager form of government. And we hired a town manager. I was part of the study committee, and that was the way to go, like your proposal. Now, the town manager was totally independent in hiring and firing, but had to have our approval. The day-to-day runnings was in his or her capacity, but any major decisions went back to the town board. And we sat as fire commissioners and police commissioners. And I can see the aspect of being a county commissioner. Now, that worked well with fire commissioners. Did not work so well as police commissioners, because then we got embroiled in the police aspects, and we set up a police commission where we appointed the people. I think it is something that would work well here. The town of Mamaroneck had, when I was there, was 35,000, between 28 and 35,000. It fluctuated, and incorporated the village of Larchmont and the village of Mamaroneck. Now, I saw how well this worked, and I saw it even better because I was a state assemblyman, state rep in Albany, and I served in the governmental committee. And we were in charge of setting legislation, parameters, and fine-tuning the town council, village boards, governance in the state of New York. And it worked very well. I'm willing to participate in any way I can. I'm a little bit of a snowbird, even though I'm a permanent resident. But I have some past experiences, but I think you're going the right way. I've been to town meetings. I am a great proponent of public involvement in town meetings, but I can see that people are concerned they're not going to have their voices heard if the town meeting form of government is done away with. But that's not so, because anything important requires a public hearing before a town manager form of government. The public hearing is the same as a town meeting. People come and speak for hours, hundreds. If it was a major concern, we fill the auditorium. And of course, when that subject was gone, they'd all leave. And then we sat back and we had the responsibility, and we had to adhere a lot to what we heard, but we had the final word. And we had to justify that vote, not only in what we heard at the public hearing, but we knew what was important. It was paid. I shy away when you said full-time job. It's a full-time job in the sense you're all the time listening what's happening in the community, but I don't want it to be, you're going to get a $60,000 or $70,000 salary. That is totally absurd. You are a part-time paid person, but full-time town councilman. I guess that's about it, but I can go on for hours with the experience, but I think you're doing the right thing, and I think it's going to be the best part for the town of Nantucket.
Thank you, Judge. Oh, we're taking, let's take an online, and then I'll go to you next. Okay.
All right, John, I think the floor is yours.
Yes, good morning. John Kitchener, a registered voter on Nantucket. I just have a question on when you put up that first interesting chart about other communities in the state. Do you have any information on the elected town councilors in those communities that have them? What the percentage of registered voters is for when the elections come up? I mean, what kind of percentage of people are voting for their town councilor representatives? Do you have any information on that? Because I kind of like to see how that looks versus the percentage of people we have show up at town meetings? Thank you.
Do you want me to try to take that
Yeah,
one?
Jeff, you got that one?
Sure. So it's not something that we've looked directly at as far as voter turnout in other communities. One advantage we do have in our process is we have been working with the Collins Center from UMass, who are experts in Massachusetts charters and governance. And that's certainly a question that I think they would probably be able to answer for us. So I think that's probably our first question that we would seek to get answers and aid from them on voter turnout in other communities. I know we've looked at voter turnout both to annual town meeting here locally and election turnout locally, but I think we could certainly ask them to do that comparison across the Commonwealth, and that's something that they could probably prepare pretty quickly.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. The reason I'm asking it's not a loaded question. I just, I'm interested in, we know we suffer from a pretty low percentage of attendance of registered voters at town meetings. So I'm just interested in, when it comes to electing our 9 town councillors, how many people are really going to show up to do that? Because if it's a very low percentage, then that would worry me. If it's a much higher percentage, then I'd be a lot more relaxed about the whole thing. So if you could get that kind of information, there wasn't that many communities, and I'm sure they have it as public record. So that would be helpful for at least me and I think some people like me. Thank you.
Okay, Caroline, you had a comment?
I just wanted to add that the Collins Center told us that we were high. We are high average in Nantucket in terms of our voter participation and turnout for open town meetings, even though it is only between 10 and 15%. We are an active participating community.
What is the voter percentage for, say, select board?
Can I answer?
Well, I was just going to add the according to our town clerk, the election, the town elections for the various issues as well as the select board tends to run 2,000 to 3,000 people, goes up and down every year. And so generally I think of the town election as having maybe 2 to 3 times the number of voters participating than open town meeting. Bo, if you had a...
Yeah, Bo Barber. The Collins Center was gracious enough to provide information on the ratio of people or electees for each board. And that was a major, they gave us a nice chart, and we can share that information with you on that.
Okay, move on to the next one. Go for it.
Okay. My name is Brooke Gibbs. I've lived here for 14 years. My family's been here from the beginning. This thing's a little low. It's a little low. Yeah, it's something's funky. Okay.
They do answer the question.
Yeah. I did a lot of research in this as a kid. Did 12 years of economics, game testing for Atari, Disney. I knew this was coming. Okay. What you're trying to accomplish is your next step is far short. You really need to go straight to mayor. You need to go straight to town council. You need to go straight to paying people a living wage to represent the community. You need to bypass all of this. This is basically an incremental stepping of control from the people to a corporation. Okay, this town council thing is enabling the people already messing things up to mess them up even more. Okay, it's not. It says accountability, but it's not taking responsibility. Okay, so we all know what's really going on Nantucket and the America and the planet, and the way to fix it here is to put people in charge that are going to take responsibility for the things that need to be taken responsibility for and fixed. That's really it. You guys are, you're trying to do this little, I can look at it, I can go through every option you've got, and I can give you explanations for all your alternatives, and they all fall short for what has to happen here. Okay?
Okay.
And so I'll offer you a solution. I'll offer you a solution to this mess, okay? Solution is you need a mayor, number one, period. You have to have somebody who's gonna do it, okay? Everyone here has their fingers in a pie of some sort, or a circle of some sort, or they're friends of some sort, or everybody has friends or influences, and it's all a really old game. It's been going on for hundreds of years, okay? And the only way it's gonna change is if somebody changes it. And the only people that are really gonna be able to change Nantucket are the people that everyone respects, okay? And it goes way back, okay? There's no other way to get people to do the right thing here unless
I'm
somebody
curious,
does.
so who are the people that people
You need to,
respect?
you need to vote for a mayor. You need to have somebody who's gonna step up and do it. You need to have somebody who's not gonna pander to these people or pander to those people or pander to their friends or, you know, it's gotta be somebody who's gonna take responsibility for fixing what's wrong here. And it's where, it's all like, it's like circular extortion, okay? And it's social, okay? It is. I have a master's in economics. I know what this is, okay? I can tell you how to fix it. The fix it is this. You need to put somebody in charge who's gonna fix it, and then you need to add AI to prove the numbers of everything that happens here, okay? Prove to everybody else what everybody's doing so that everybody's accountable and responsible for their actions, okay? Because this is like top of the top of the top. If we're gonna be exemplary to the rest of the world, then be exemplary. Take accountability and responsibility for everything you do, everybody. Your fingers are here, your influence is here, your money is here, your power is here. We all know what's going on. We all know who it is. We all know it's everywhere. We all know it has to change. So the way to change it is to use numbers. Don't use people and their perspectives and their opinions and their goals and personal egos and stuff to get what we all need. Have numbers prove it. Create a simulation of Nantucket, just like SimCity back in the day. Show everybody's utility usages, sewage usages, transport, all sorts. We carry our phones around, they're already tracking everything. You know what I'm saying? So why don't we just take responsibility for everything that we do and are here and go to something that's not centralized around personal interests and circles and stuff? Because this has gone on for so long. Where are we going to end? Where is this going to end?
Well,
town council, your step to town council falls so short. I could destroy it in 7 sentences. Okay, it's a waste of time. You need to go straight to people that are going to be responsible to fix the things that need to get fixed here.
Well, let me stop you there. I mean, I think I appreciate your perspective, and you certainly are entitled to your opinion.
Yep.
I guess I would suggest that, when this comes forward at whatever open town meeting is going to deal with voting on it, you should stand up and express your opinion.
I know,
And
I should,
yeah.
but I mean, you gotta hold your cards to the very end and play them at the exact right time here. Because this is the top of the game. This is not a poker game for kids. Okay, I'm not gonna go out and put myself out in public until I have to. Because, people have, goals and agendas and they work with their friends to get things done. So I know what you know.
Well, again, thanks for your input. I appreciate your comments.
Would you like for me to just tell you how to do this?
No, today, no.
Okay, I'll see you at town meeting.
Okay, thanks. Okay.
All right, Dan, please unmute.
Hi, I'm Dan Drake, a 25-year resident of Nantucket and a lifetime summer residency here. Before I get into what I have to say, I'd like to ask one quick question. I assume your model for the town council is for the councilors to be elected at large by all the island, not by certain geographical locations?
Dan, hi. Yes, the, if you will, current conclusion of the committee was 9 town councilors elected at large as opposed to having precincts or districts.
Thank you. That's what I thought, but I wanted to be sure. First of all, I'd like, as many people who know me well know that this is a topic I hold near and dear to my heart and have for a long time. uh, partly as a result of just being a bystander and watching what's going on, and partly for my 10 years experience as chair of the airport commission, where getting things done and voted on and so forth was an incredibly laborious process when you're essentially running a business. I want to commend you all, the members of the committee, and you particularly the chair, Joe, for taking this on. I think it's absolutely necessary. And I'll be fascinated to see where it comes out. My particular comment about all this is that while I'm not sure I agree with all the things he said, I agree with the track that the previous speaker was on, which really comes down to the fact that without somebody who's elected, who is accountable to the voters, basically in charge, things aren't going to get done. You need leadership. And the present system kneecaps anybody who wants to try to be a leader. And yes, there are good leaders and there are bad leaders, but we need leadership in this process. And without somebody in the form of either an elected, I don't know if it's possible, an elected town manager or a mayor, it's not going to happen. The other side of it is you need the checks and balances that a town council provides, as we do in our national and state systems, for better or for worse, but you need that process. So I would urge you to consider that aspect of the outcome you finally provide and recommend to the town. Because if we really want to change things, we've got to have somebody who is in a position of leadership with the power to act as a leader, but the checks and balances that are necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Tony Buscarin. I'm a Nantucket voter, been here about 10 years, been on the Airport Commission for about 10 years. How much money do you propose paying the councilors?
Well, again, the Collins Group that we've been using as consultant to support us has told us that the 13 towns that have town council, town manager forms that we're proposing have compensation for the councilors in the $10,000 to $20,000 a year as a stipend range. We have not, as a committee, decided upon that. That's sort of a last-minute detail, but again, I will say this, speaking for Joe Grouse, I think that it ought to be on the more like the $20,000 range. I mean, I don't know many of you in the room, but know this, but our select board, I use the term full-time job. It is a full-time job in terms of the amount of time and effort that they go through to attend meetings and be participating in other beyond select board activities. I think, at least the way I envision a town council, these individuals are going to be working very hard in the sense of both the activities in meetings, but also making themselves available to their constituents. And I think we should compensate them for their time. So.
Sure, I would just encourage you to stay to the lower end. I think $20,000 might be a reasonable amount of money. I just note that people that are on the select board do an awful lot of work for $3,500. I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Hillary Rayport was the next online hand up.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So I appreciate this forum, and I thank you all for all the work that you've been doing for so long. I attended, as you know, the meetings regularly from when they started in, I guess, January until the point at which you moved to developing the charter. And one of my big questions and interests, and I did vote to form this committee because I wanted the topic studied. So I was very interested in study around changing the form of government. But my big interest was more exploration about representative town meetings. So I'm sure you're all anticipating this question, but I would love to hear you speak more directly to why you're not favoring a representative town meeting, really what you feel the negatives are, because it would be a step towards a representative form of government, but not going all the way to shrinking the legislative body to 9 people. I'm concerned about corruption. And when I say corruption, I don't mean envelopes flying around. I just mean influence, the pressure that gets put on folks because of friendships and relationships. I think it's very hard. I've seen select board members burn out because they're just getting overwhelmed by people in the community piling onto them. Very good select board members not run for election again for this region. So again, I'd love to have more details around the decision not to favor a representative town meeting, and then I might have a follow-up question if you don't mind. Thank you.
I mean, I'll start. I mean, I think Hillary, the primary reason that we reviewed and then abandoned representative town meeting is that it doesn't cure really one of the fundamental problems with open town meeting, and that representative town meetings still only occur 1 or 2 or 3 times a year. For the folks in the audience, representative town meeting, 1 to 200 representatives are elected by the voters at large, who form a subset, if you will, of an open town meeting body, and there are other issues about attendance and consistency of attendance on representative town meeting, but from my perspective, the biggest problem was you're really not creating a more responsive legislative body, because you still are only meeting 1 or 2 or 3 times a year. I don't know if anybody else has a.
Yes, thank you, Hillary. We looked at this in this way. We thought that currently it is an informal representative system. The people that participate regularly are sort of already our representatives. So, and I also want to go back to the previous speakers. So we are concerned with special interest. This is something we are actively studying, and I want to say that the distillation of accountability in this new system is what makes it work from the sort of fragmented system that we have currently with 3 institutions, or 1 manager, an executive board, and a town legislation. What we're trying to do is distill so that we have accountability, or have more accountability. And yes, to Hillary's point, there's going to be some selective pressure on our politicians. And I think that is a good thing. I think that's okay. I think that's natural. And these people, you're going to pay them. You're going to make a market for their services. They're also going to have office hours. And I think to just address your concerns, I think that's a normal thing.
Okay. Hillary, did you want a follow-up question?
Yes, thank you so much for that and for coming back to me. I actually would just like to, I know this is a part Q&A and part just listening. So I'd like to just give my opinion about certain things and my observations about certain things in response to that. Because regarding the, that you're represented by the people who show up, yes, it is true that open town meeting, there are people who maybe they could be at town meeting, but they prefer to just let other people go, and they feel like other people will make good decisions. And I think the reason why open town meeting has worked for so many communities, including this one, for so long, is because people have a lot in common. people who are high information voters who are very committed, they show up, but they're not charged with representing their community. They're just charged with representing themselves. So I actually think it's not really proper to compare a open town meeting to a representative town meeting by saying that the people at an open town meeting are representing for everybody else, because they're not elected for that obligation, and they're really there to represent themselves. And the reason why it works is because of civic mindedness and community integrity, and the care that people have for each other. I think, however, some of the attributes of a representative town meeting preserve the wonderful thing about large groups making decisions, which is it does inoculate against that kind of corruption, sort of collusive influence, burnout, polarization that we're talking about, because you have a large group of people making the decision. So you preserve that benefit. But when you move to a representative town meeting, you open up the possibility of deliberation as a body in between town meetings. So while it's true that a representative town meeting would meet, 2 or 3 times a year, whereas a town council would meet maybe monthly or however often they want, a representative town meeting is a deliberative body that is able to converse with one another without having to convene an open meeting. So I have a friend who is a representative in the Brookline town meeting. She is a member of a listserv, which is limited only to the members, the elected members, 250 elected members of the town of Brookline. And they actually deliberate questions. So in fact, they have a continuous dialogue of the issues that are going on, the potential of what they might be voting on when they come into session. So it has very, very different properties. A representative town meeting has very different properties than an open town meeting that address the concern about the open town meeting not being an effective deliberative body. I also want to finally address the comment from Bo about we have this fragmented body and we want to distill it down to have more accountability. I think you need to balance this with the checks and balance and the kind of more of a avoiding the burnout and the polarization that I discussed. I think my great fear about a town council, while I recognize the benefit of being able to move quickly, I'm just not sure that moving quickly is the thing to prioritize, because you just can make mistakes more quickly and you can burn people out. And my concern is that it's going to be such a difficult job to be able to actually make, these 9 people will be making laws and they will be appropriating money. They will be changing people's zoning, and it can happen anytime throughout the year. Certainly there will be a hearing at the planning board before that happens. But, given the nature of people going away, there's just going to be a lot of pressure on these 9 people. And I'm concerned that only the people who have a tremendous amount to gain are going to be willing to serve. Whereas it's much more of a community body and more civically minded when you have, it can be 400 to 1,200 people in open town meeting. It would be 250 at a representative town meeting. It's
Hillary.
still a big group of people. All right. I know I've gone on for a little bit longer, but those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Next questioner or commenter?
Yeah, Lois Alamonte. I'm only here a few years, a registered voter, but I have lived in small towns with town councils. And we had a town supervisor who was elected, and I'm wondering why a town manager would be appointed and not elected.
I guess the simplest issue is we thought, if you look at the, I forget the number from the slide, 30-something, the cities in Massachusetts that have mayor city council forms, the mayor is an elected position. And I think our feeling as a committee was that that was sort of a step too far for Nantucket, that having a representative town council, an elected representative town council was a sufficient step at this stage to have a more responsive, more proactive kind of legislative body, but that our town manager, which is already considered a strong town manager, was sufficient to be the executive function of the town government. I don't know if anybody else wants to add to that.
So an elected would basically be a mayor, that elected position. We also forget that the chair of the board, so the select board chair, basically sets the agendas and runs the meeting. And we thought about making a titular head or a titular mayor, because some towns do this. They have a titular head for the chair, and they call that person the mayor. That person's elected, but it basically is the chair of the town council. So, I mean, it's only a name, but that person has a lot of power when you really think about it, to be able to set the agenda and then yeah, so we thought about it, but that's the difference in the system. Those are the only options that were given for us in the state of
And I just
Massachusetts.
thought that there's somebody with a lot of power, all the more reason for them to be elected. And one other question, if you can, a short scenario of how something would be handled by a town council, something like Surfside Crossing, just to get an idea of how that would work compared to town meeting, if possible.
Go for it.
All right, I'll try my best. So obviously, without getting into a specific current item, right? Things are complicated in a project like Surfside Crossing. Obviously, there's a lot of different permitting interests, whether it's, zoning, health, public safety, environmental concerns, conservation commission things. So it's kind of multifaceted. So as the legislative body of the town, what would happen is if there needed to be a change to, we'll use a pretty innocuous example of like a sewer district. What we currently take up now is there are certain rights for folks, whether you're a property owner or potentially a group of voters that can apply, or the town itself essentially applies to the town. Most of those applications would be taken in through, planning and land use, obviously, and then would go into review by the appropriate board, whether it's planning board, potentially zoning, any other board that's designated. Obviously, both the executive branch and legislative branch have the ability to form committees to do any sort of review. That application then gets reviewed. There are public hearings that go through that process, and then ultimately those would culminate in a public hearing at the town council. So there would be at least 2 points in some process like that for the public to engage in an advertised hearing before it potentially goes to a vote of the town council. Depending on what type of decision, obviously, at the town council level, there are things like, typically zoning requires a 2/3 majority for changes. There are other things that can flip that around. Sewer districting is typically basic majority. But one of the things that we've just started to look at the level we're at is where do we include enough citizen participation, and kind of the 4 major options that we're looking at obviously are folks' abilities to petition the town council for action, whether it's on a property specific basis or a general bylaw request. That there are a couple different ways that we've been looking at for folks to compel action for discussion or decision by the town council. Those petitions can be received really at any time. It's not limited to a specific block of the year. Then there are also petitions for the ability to, I always get these two backwards. There's a potential for a referendum option where you can also, as citizens, petition to overturn a decision of the council. You can go through and work as a citizens group and pull together enough signatures, and that's kind of what we've been discussing at our last meeting, and we'll probably be discussing at our next regular meeting, to revisit decisions of the council. And then the other option that we're also looking at is, if people feel that the council's doing such a bad job that there's the ability for voters to also have recalls. So those are options that were there, but one of the things that our group has been really emphasizing is this idea of ensuring that there's multiple points of meaningful public engagement in that decision-making process. Sorry for the really long-winded answer.
Hi, Erica Mooney. Just to disclose, I work for the town. The town manager is my boss. I work with the select board. I know. I work for the town. My name's Erica Mooney. I work for the town manager. She is my boss, and I work with the select board. So I just want to disclose that. Just a couple questions and maybe a comment. What about the county charter? We are a town, but we are also a county. So where does revising the county charter come into play here?
I think the quick answer is we expect the town councilors to act, in effect, step into those shoes and be the county commissioners as well. The Collins Center group that has been helping us draft the town charter is going to take the charter for the county and basically do the same sort of remap it, if you will, for having the town councilors be the county commissioners, is our expectation. And then once we have that draft, it's going to go to the town lawyers, KP Law, for final review.
Okay. I do question how we expect to elect 10 people when we can barely get 2 people to run for select board on an annual basis. Everybody complains that the same old people are in the same old roles, but it's because no one runs for the seats. So I do worry that you're going to be able to get a well-rounded group together through the election process.
I worry about that too, Erica.
Yeah. And also, how do we make sure that the town council is balanced? If they're not from regions and it's essentially a popularity contest, the top 10 people who get elected are now the board members. Where is the balance on that to make sure that there is, you said that one of the things about a town council is that they're professional, knowledgeable, and well-informed. What's to guarantee that those people that are running have any of those qualifications?
Well, I guess the first hope is that by raising the level of compensation, we at least get some other people to consider running for these positions. I agree with you. When we discussed the number of town councilors, the number in the state ranges, I think, from 5 to 11 from the other communities. And we felt that 9 was a number that actually sort of diluted the power of any one town councilor. Now, you may be right that maybe on Nantucket, getting 9 people to run for these positions is difficult, and maybe we should reconsider that. I don't know.
And just if it is a 10-member board, you can end up with ties?
Well, we would never do 10. It would always be, we've been considering 7.
Okay, so
7 or 9 were
Yep.
probably the 2 finalists, if you will, in that particular meeting.
All right. And then regarding having office hours, I'm wondering where that would take place. And I know that's like a far-fetched thought right now, but the town is so maxed out with meeting space. And we've had select board members who have held office hours in the past and no one came. And so they stopped having them. So it's just something to think about. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Anyone else? Online? Oh. Donna?
Good morning. My name is Donna Martino, and I'm an active member of the Advisory Committee of Non-Voting Taxpayers. And I have been appointed as a non-voting member of the Town Council Study Committee. And I wanted to go on record for our committee, which is meeting at this time, 10 o'clock to 12 this morning, that we want to go on record that we are very much in favor of a town council form of government. We would look forward to participating more and having more representation than we have now. And also, as far as checks and balances, as I've been listening to the discussions this morning, there really will be some good checks and balances with 7 or 9 council members. And the government will be ongoing once or twice a month for 12 months of the year. So I think there would be some sort of assurance that Nantucket is constantly moving forward, discussing items and getting work done on a weekly, monthly basis. And I think with the new form of government, it might attract more people to run for positions. So I think we could look at it, yes, maybe there won't be enough, but perhaps there will be more people because this is something new for us and more interactive. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna.
You're welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, any other questions, comments?
Yeah. I've got a couple of questions. One is.
Could I ask you to identify
Oh,
yourself?
I'm sorry. I'm Vicki Goss. I've been here since 1976 and active at every single town meeting, almost. Does everyone who lives here or don't we all already have the option to go to the select board, whether we are voting or non-voting taxpayers? Aren't the select board already available to comments and questions?
You can, but that's not you're not dealing with the legislature.
But the select board at the moment is a decision-making body.
No, the select board is the executive function of government that really has to deal with what the town meeting has appropriated or approved.
Okay. But their opinions are still heard?
Yes, and
Okay.
yes, you're absolutely right. And you
Okay.
you can go to select board meetings and there is public comment. That's absolutely correct.
Another comment is that I agree with the whoever said sometimes it's not a bad thing to move slowly. That having, might as well stop calling it special town meeting since it happens every year anyway. So I really have problems with this town representation, thinking that 9 people are more representative of the town than the 300 to 1,000 people who come to town meeting. They're not necessarily, the 300 or so people who are diehard regulars at town meeting all the way to the bitter end are caring and as well informed as we can be, given the publications that don't always come to town meeting. Maybe it's just, my suggestion is that perhaps if people were better informed in a timely manner, and if some things about town meeting were changed, like no amendments on the floor, things like that. Has anybody looked at that as well as at this town council or town representative? Is any of that, has any of that ever been an option?
Modifications to open town meeting were not part of our
That's not part
charge.
of your remit,
Yeah,
right? Okay, and then the town, this is going to cost a considerable amount of money with paying 9 people a sufficient salary and the town manager is going to have more power, is going to need a much larger support group. The budget's going to go up considerably. That's one comment. I like the referendum option, but I also agree with the idea of electing a town manager as instead of appointing one, because that's, again, that's a really, really powerful position. And then another couple of things, the zoning issues right now require a 2/3 vote. Is something like that going to be required of town council? Would something like that?
Zoning would continue to require two-thirds votes
vote.
of the town councilors.
And big budget items, does that still come as an elected, do things that, well, obviously Prop 2.5 has to come as a vote every year, but
It would still apply, yeah.
anything big budget, does that come before the town as a vote rather than as just a decision by the council?
Well, I think various appropriations, and again, stop me if I, various appropriations for either the town budget or specific capital items would still be reviewed by various town departments or committees before it bubbles up, if you will, on a cycle to the town councilors. But, the public will continue to have the ability to go to those meetings, make comment, and candidly, when you think about how open town meeting works, most of the time, the various appropriations don't even get called. So I think, there's going to be, if not the same, hopefully, more opportunity to have input from voters on various financial items that, as a former finance committee member, I was always amazed that there were a lot of money items that just weren't called and no one wanted to talk about them. So.
Yep. And then how do you keep money, influence, pressure out of the elections? Is there going to be?
How do you keep it, how do we keep it out of the elections we have today?
We don't. Can we do better? Is there going to, could there be this amount of money is going to be divided up among the people equally who are running for office, and freedom of speech, all the rest of that, but still, it's a huge problem. There are some people on this island or who have a great deal to lose if their positions aren't voted for, who have a whole lot more money than a lot of other people.
I'm not sure I've got the, Jeff, you want to?
I'll give a shot. So
Can we do better than the national government?
I'm just going to step back one, and then Vicki, I'll get back to your latest point. A lot of the processes that are involved, so zoning and how the town can raise and borrow money and do those kinds of things for those large-scale capital projects, a lot of those processes are governed by state law. So zoning, for example, see if I can get the number right, is I believe that's governed by Chapter 40B of Mass General Laws, and that's where the requirements for 2/3 votes, or in recent years, the state has altered that around for some incentivization of affordable housing for what those require, but those are governed through state law. So if it's appearing on the ballot now as a capital item that's related to how the town is raising that money, it would still be required to be on the ballot at that point. So to move to the next one, without trying to sound like overly aspirational or naive, is I think related to keeping money out of politics. I think that's where, trying to, as citizens, incentivizing transparency really comes in, right? Right now, the town doesn't fund people running for office or provide, campaign matching funds or things that the feds do. I think there's really an ultimate responsibility to voters to demand from their representatives to be transparent. And that's our job, right? That's our job to do and to hold those people accountable. And that's, I know we've used that word a lot today for accountability, but ultimately, for representatives, them being held accountable is our job. That's what we do. And if we feel that they are taking extra money and not disclosing and doing that, it's our job to not vote for them or to demand that information. And in turn, they should be providing that. And I know that's really like, let's all hold hands and sing songs kind of a ideal there, but in its simplest form, at least in my mind, that's our greatest responsibility, whether it's in any form of government as a voter, is to, follow good information and good practice and ethical information and be participant and transparent and try to do the best we can.
And maybe just to add a different perspective, one of the reasons I voted in our meeting when we said we want to have 9 counselors as opposed to whatever other number, was that I felt, and I grant Erica's comment that can we find 9 counselors? But I think we can. But I also think that it dilutes some of that in some way, that you can't, having more people representing hopefully different sections or different, representing all the inhabitants of the island. They're not all going to be able to be, I don't know, corrupted. So I hope.
Sorry,
I personally have to say, I don't think they're corrupted today, but.
To add really quickly to that too, because it's not always clear, and I know we've talked about 9 folks, is the way that we've currently been suggesting it is 9 counselors, but they would each be on 3-year staggered terms. So it's 3 per year for those 3 years. So you try to get some continuity. So you're not looking for, 9 folks to run all at one time. You're looking for 3 to get elected each year. So hopefully you get a good candidate pool. And
Are we doing term limits and all the rest of that as well?
yes, that's currently in the proposed charter. I think Bo had something he wanted to add too.
What did I say? One of the interesting things about this new system is that the town council can form new committees. The FinCom would go away as it is. What you could do and what you could replace it with is like a Ways and Means Committee. We talked to the town manager for Bridgewater, and he went through the step-by-step process, which is very regimented, by the way, to describe where a bill goes for budgeting. Okay, so in Bridgewater, they have something like a Ways and Means Committee. They call it the Financial Committee or something like that. And legislation passes from the town manager for a budget. It goes to the town council, and then the town council sends it to the FinCom, which is Ways and Means, for review. And then it would come back with recommendations. So in that system, you can have different committees that form to help the various functions of the legislative. Some of the legislative processes will be retained. The executive. So in the system that we have currently, the select board has executive functions. Some of those executive functions will be retained in the legislature, in the new legislature, the town council. Things like zoning, okay, or the taking of zoning or legislation. So some of those things will be retained. That's what I kind of want to say. It's more for continuity. It's not always that the town manager takes all the executive function. Some of the function that the select board currently has will be maintained throughout the system.
Just to add on to Bo's comment really quickly too, groups like, if they did constitute a Ways and Means Committee or any other committee, they're obviously still subject to open meeting law requirement. That's not a closed door group. So if the Ways and Means Committee has a meeting, it has to be some level of posted meeting unless it qualifies for an executive session somehow. I'm not sure how, but Those would be obviously meetings that would be available for the public to attend and be governed by open meeting law.
Okay, and then my last huge quibble is that the town manager position really is getting a great deal of power. And it doesn't look as though there are that many checks and balances being posed against that. And again, the electing seems to me a wiser idea,
Well,
but it's a huge quibble, and I don't see why that much power goes to one person.
I guess two comments on that. Number one, our town manager today is already, as I think I said earlier, considered a strong town manager. So in terms of ability to manage manage the whole range of government, departments, Libby has quite strong powers already with the, if you will, backstop of the select board to approve or disapprove her position, hiring and firing decisions and so on. Those disapproval/approval powers would remain in a town council.
And that veto power of the town council is absolute.
Well, in the sense that, if the town manager wants to hire, a new head of the DPW and the town council thinks this person is not the right person, they have the ability to stop that. It doesn't go all the way down, if you will, the pyramid, but certainly the senior positions, the town council has really very similar veto powers to what the select board has today.
And the town manager would only have the power to appoint the higher, the department head.
That's the way I understand it today. But the other thing I should point out is the town council also hires and fires the town manager. So, that individual still reports to an elected body as the town manager does today to the select board. So I'm not sure I agree with you on the elected part, but I think that certainly in terms of recruiting, and again, you sometimes have to take current, our current situation with Libby and think about this more generally, but I think that you've got the ability to recruit and retain a competent person in that position under the control of an elected body. So I think the voters are still being well represented in that. So.
Okay. And then one final comment. The state of Nevada, the legislature only meets once a year, and they don't seem to have a problem with speed and getting things done in a timely manner.
Thank you.
I make a comment to that. So going back to my previous comments on the retaining of executive function, it's my opinion that the town manager's role is no more powerful. We did look at that in detail on the vetoing of department heads. We gave them 3 weeks instead of 2 weeks to do that. So there's no difference there. The real power comes from appointments versus elective. And we decided to look at that in one way, or two ways, really. You take the people that take the institution, the town manager, and you take the legislative. Each institution has their own way to select their own people. And we thought that's best for the overall function, so that if you form a committee as the legislature, you would be selecting your own people on that committee for appointments. There are still elected boards. We're still going to have elected boards. Some of that's governed by state law. if the town manager, for whatever reason, wants to form a committee, they would be able to do that on their, to their own degree. But there's not many committees, if you're going to be honest, there are not many committees that have a huge impact. I think Park and Rec right now is one of those. The really impactful committees will stay just the way they are, is elected. And we thought that just maintaining that continuity in our own, in the new charter would just, it would just stay like that.
May I ask one quick question on Natalie Jacobson?
Natalie, can I ask you to, just so it's all recorded?
Sure. Natalie Jacobson, longtime Nantucketer. And you may have covered this and I missed it because I came in a couple of minutes past 10. Who would get to vote for the town councilor?
All the same voters that today participate in the town election.
Joe, can you use your mic?
Yeah, I'll answer. The folks that would get to vote for town councilors are the registered voters of Nantucket.
So
if you're-
the summer people you were referring to and people who own property but don't vote here would not be participating?
Correct. You have to be registered to vote in Nantucket. If you're registered to vote elsewhere, then you would not be participating in that election.
And you know, there are roughly 10,000 registered voters on Nantucket.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Oh.
All right.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. It's John Kitchener again. This is more of a housekeeping thing now that we're sort of coming to the end. But earlier on, I asked a couple of questions about the percentage of voters that show up to elect town councilors in those other communities in the state. So that's one thing I think Jeff said he would come back with. A second was that same information about our own select board, to, you know, what percentage of our community shows up to vote for them. What's going to be the process for all of us to get that? And I'm sure there were other people had questions that actually need an answer. How are you going to get that information back to us? So I'll stick with my example. How are you going to get that information back to me and others?
Thanks for the question, John. The plan is that we're going to take all the questions and comments from today's meeting, as well as the second public forum that we're hosting this coming Thursday, answer all the ones that we can if there are situations where we've made come to a conclusion or a decision. But there will be an FAQ, frequently asked questions section on our webpage on the town's website. So the way that we're going to respond to all of your questions and all of the future questions will be through that mechanism. Additionally, as I think Jeff said earlier, we have a town council study committee email box, so which is also on the webpage, Jeff, right? So if you all think of a question later on, feel free to go to our website and send us an email, and we will. Our game plan is to not respond directly to an individual so much as acknowledge that we got the question and then add an FAQ to the list on the website.
That's great, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I would like to add one more request to mine, and that is in those communities that do have, town councils, how many of the town managers are elected versus appointed? And because it's all sort of part of my same kind of question about elected versus appointed. So that would be helpful also if we could get that.
Okay, well, we're going to have to ask the folks from the Collins Center for that. But
yeah, that's fine.
We can get that info.
Yeah, and guys, thanks for what you're doing. It's very thought-provoking. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other, Judge?
One elaboration I had, when I mentioned that I worked with a 4-member town council, it really was 5, because the supervisor was the fifth person. And I think you should strongly consider, everybody ran away from the title mayor, but the idea of supervisor, previous spokesperson said that they're familiar with that. It'd be important to have a central person who is elected as supervisor. No more powers than the other town council, but was the spokesman for the board, a central figure to appear even ceremonially. One of the things I notice when I go to many things, there isn't one person who can speak for the town other than Libby, and that is putting a executive function into a legislative function as spokesman. So I think you should seriously consider 5-member board, but there be, instead of a chairman of the board, that there be a supervisor.
Well, Judge, it's very interesting you say that, because we did have a presentation from a town councilor for Palm Beach, Florida, and they have much the same structure in that one of the members of the town council is, I think Jeff Poe might have made this, is called the mayor, and that really is has no more power than any other town councilor, but acts as the sort of public face of the community at various events. The town manager is actually the more powerful, organizationally and politically. So, but thank you.
That person elected directly as the mayor, I think it should be a supervisor. People run away from the word mayor, but to be elected for that position and be a member of the board, but to be positioned as supervisor and then 4 town council. I think 9 is a lot.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just comment on that? You bring up an interesting point, and this is a point that probably Caroline and I agree on, of this titular head. And just to highlight the power that the chair has, we should probably call that person a mayor, right? I mean, or something that delegates more power because they have more power. And that person would just be the responsible head of the committee. I think that's a good idea. But having it be elected from the general populace versus elected from their own board currently is, I guess, a question we could debate.
Oh, Curtis.
In Barnstable, the chair of the council is called the president, and that person is elected by the council, and that is the ceremonial head that you're looking for. So you could do it within the council by having your senior person be the ceremonial person. Barnstable has that already.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been,
Just one quick question. On the printing, on the proposed charter that is printed out on the website, there's a lot of, in red, NA at the bottom of some of the paragraphs. Is that not applicable, or is that, what does that mean?
We've gone through, I think, 4 of the sections of the, we're working with the boilerplate charter from UMass, and we meet and with the consultants from the Collins Center go through and try to make some decisions about the particulars in all these various sections. So a lot of it hasn't been done yet. We're going to be meeting and continuing to refine the charter probably through December.
So does it just mean not answered?
Don't worry so much. We'll put subsequent versions as we fill in, if you will, the blanks as we go forward.
So it means not answered, not applicable?
It's not, well, if it's in black, it probably means it's not applicable. I'm guessing here.
No, it's in
but
red.
Yeah,
It's in red.
where it's red, I think it's just we haven't gotten to it yet.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't, if there are any more questions, we're happy to sit here, but at the same time, we really appreciate the time that you've taken to join us today, both here and on Zoom. Any other questions? Going once? Going twice? All right. Thank you very much for being here. I'll adjourn the Town Council Study Committee Public Forum. Thank you.